Let's talk about the asylum situation in the United States. Now, we have a situation here where they're talking about this Muhammad Solomon feller that did what he did in Boulder, and he was seeking asylum in the United States. His family seeking asylum in the United States. My question is, why was that even? I mean, that should have been laughed out of the situation completely. Here's a man who was born in Egypt. He spent quite a few years there to the point that he became a fan of the Muslim Brotherhood. That's basically the Democrat Party of Egypt. He then moves to Kuwait, which is another one of those really nice countries to live in this world, especially for a Muslim man. And they're talking about, oh, he wanted his daughter to get a medical degree. Well, okay, if his daughter wants to get a medical degree and she can't go to Kuwait, European schools would have accepted her. American schools would have accepted her. So they didn't have to move to the United States for her to go to medical school. He's not getting persecuted because he's a Muslim male that is going with the mainstream in those countries. He's so mainstream that he could get radicalized here in the United States, that he's following along with a Muslim way of thinking here in the United States. Now, mind you, there are folks in the Middle East and in the U.S. that don't go along with Hamas, but, well, this guy did. Seriously, this fella did. And then you're taking into account that, okay, he's not being persecuted in any way, shape, or form. And then you take into to the equation that he's not at a country that's having any kind of humanitarian crisis. So you tell me, what is this taking that serious? I mean, it should have been, there literally should be a fast lane of immigrate for a couple of immigration judges to be fast lanes to take a look at some of these asylum claims and laugh at it and then go, no. Do you agree with me? Let me let you hear. Chris Cuomo had a good interview. One was with a Palestinian feller that he sought asylum after Hamas took over. He was here in the United States and he got granted U.S. citizenship because of Hamas taking over. And the other fella is a guy that's working to create an algorithm for finding these extremists online. So let's let you hear this clip. Howdy, y'all. This is Paul, the Redneck Thinker. What we have here is a channel to communicate. I want you folks to be thinking by the time you leave my videos. Why? Because I'm tired of people talking via what other people tell them to think. So, watch my video and enjoy the chance to think for yourself.
We have Aaron Cohen, who's a former Israeli Special Forces agent, and he's a terror analyst. Very helpful. He is developing software to help people detect what's happening online, because that's where fundamentalism is spreading most quickly. And Ahmed Fouad Al-Khatib. Okay, I want to bring him in, American writer, analyst from Gaza. It's good to have you, Ahmed. Thank you very much for joining me again. All right, so we got the law, and then we've got the policy. I start with you, Ahmed. Does the United States have the right to take a family? We know that the suspect overstayed his visa, so he is not legally in the country. Do they have the legal right to do what they're doing?
Well, let me start by just expressing my sympathies to the victims and sending them well wishes for a speedy recovery, and expressing outrage for this heinous crime by this individual, as I have on repeated occasions. I think, unfortunately, this may be a case of a rushed and a reactive response to kind of give the impression that we're doing something about these radical elements within our society. I very much so believe that the United States, especially toward non-citizens, ultimately has the legal discretion to decide who gets to stay and who gets to leave. And I want to be open and transparent myself. I first came to the United States on an F1 student visa, and then I ultimately applied for and received political asylum. The very day of my asylum interview was when Hamas took over the Gaza Strip, but that's a separate matter. My point is, I wonder if there's a rush to get this family out, and in so doing, there might be just kind of a lack of empathy for the ordeal that they're going through, assuming that they had no foreknowledge or prior knowledge of what this man was about to
Well, that's
do,
the question.
and B, that their life is going to be turned upside down. They haven't been in Egypt, it sounds like, for many years. Kuwait isn't going
Right.
to take them back. They're going back likely to Egypt, which is likely their passport of origin. And they probably have no remaining roots there. Maybe they have some family members there. So most importantly, I want to say that there might be a missed opportunity to gather intelligence and to understand the picture around this man's
Right.
life and the community, and to really get where did he go wrong? How did the radicalization happen? So I worry that this may be a legal decision, but a very rushed one and a potentially inhumane one.
So, Aaron, I mean, look, you can't have it both ways. If you're able to develop intelligence from this people, it means that they knew things about his radicalization. And to me, he seems very familiar, not just because he overstayed his visa, but this is your typical lone wolf, radicalized by proxy. And he's been thinking about how to do this for a long time and came up with his own stupid way, not an official group behind him, but he loves the Muslim Brotherhood. I mean, isn't this guy exactly who we're worried about?
Chris, you nailed a couple of key ones. Good to see you again. Here's where I'm at with this. Deportation isn't punishment. It's deterrence. That's how we frame this in counterterrorism. And what's happening with Soleiman's family, this isn't revenge what the United States is doing, what DHS is doing. This isn't some like political theater. This is deterrence. And this is how a country reasserts control, Chris, after letting the enemy walk in through the front door, which is now the internet, the algorithm, as you mentioned. So this guy threw Molotov cocktails at a pro-Israel rally, peaceful in Boulder. Wasn't a protest. This is attempted mass murder, Chris. That's terrorism. And if the family around him lied on their visas, knew about this, looked the other way, or had anything to do with helping to radicalize him, they're gone. Plain and simple. We've spent years, Chris, tiptoeing around this ideology, too scared to act, that the fears made us vulnerable. But the next wave, and you know this because you've said this, of terrorism isn't going to look like 9/11. Lone actors, like you said, radicalized online, America's enemies hijacking that algorithm, hiding in plain sight, fifth generation warfare. It's ideological, it's digital, it's psychological, and we're still pretending like it's a criminal issue. And removing this family sends a message. You lie, you radicalize, you support terror, you're gone. And this is how you prevent.
Now, do I believe that there are folks that deserve asylum in this country? Yeah. And I actually disagree. Well, of course I disagree with Democrats on one of these standpoints. Christians that are in predominantly Muslim countries in the Middle East are discriminated against. There is no argument on that unless you're an idiot. Christians in the Middle East are forced to pay high taxes. They're not allowed to practice their religion. They're monitored so that they don't try to convert some other Muslim over to Christianity. And it's the government policy of these countries to try to force them to become Muslim, but they still have all kinds of persecution done to them, even though they were converted to Islam. Those folks, I believe, should be asylum seekers in the United States. But the Democrat Party says no, they shouldn't be. That's no joke. They want to make sure that those folks are turned down. Now, you have folks that are in areas that, like South Sudan, there are certain tribes there that are literally killed because that's not the predominant, they're the weaker tribes of that area. You take a look at those folks, okay, fine. Then again, though, I mean, you got a lot of African folks that come into this country that, good Lord, they're far more conservative and they are willing to work their tail end off, unlike certain people in this country. And I'm not just talking about black folks, I know white trash folks that, honestly, they should take a page out of the book of these African folks that come over here. And that's what I'm talking about. We need a revamp. We can't get Congress to do anything, but it would take an act of Congress to revamp our asylum system. And like I said, one of the first things we need to do is have a fast lane. We need to have a fast lane of judges that are willing to crack up laughing when they look at some of these asylum applications, and they need to go, no. And they need to fast lane these things. We need to get to the point that this is not even a consideration. You're a military age male from a country down in South America or Central America. Yeah, no, you shouldn't get asylum. We need to get to the point that that is the way of things in this country. And if it ain't, then we need to consider what is going wrong. We need to get back to asylum being really what it means. You hear all these Democrats going, oh, asylum is a human right. Yeah, I agree with you. We need to help folks in some of these countries. But then again, though, this is also the country that turned away boatloads. And I'm not joking about that. We literally turned away boats filled with Jewish asylum seekers before World War II. And even during World War II, we were turning away Jews that were from Europe because, well, we just couldn't deal with that. We need to fix our asylum situation here. But tell me what you think. And by the way, this is something, if you examine it, we would have far less of these folks coming in this country. And considering the problems we got in this country, that pretty much would be a good thing. This has been Paul, the Redneck Thinker. Y'all have a good day now. Bye. So, folks, that's the story that I wanted to bring you on this video. And I just wanted to say thank you again for coming by. Hit like, subscribe, comment, all that fun stuff if you don't mind. Helps me out. So, y'all have a good day now. Bye.